Welcome to Lunch and Learn with Lori and Lori. I'm Lori Highby, president and owner of Keystone Click, here with Lorry Rifkin, owner of Clarity Management. How are you today, Lori?
I'm doing great today. It was a nice weekend. Now I'm ready to do a little work.
Fantastic. Today's topic is all about brand and branding. Can you share with our listeners and our viewers what is a brand?
I define a brand as the non-product attributes of a product or service that an audience recognizes as part of your offering. I'll call it maybe the emotional quadrant of your product or service.
Emotional quadrant. Okay, interesting. So it seems quite broad. Can you go a little deeper on what that means?
Yeah, I think using some examples is the best way. Everyone's seen the farmer insurance, what claims they covered. Their brand is, we cover almost anything you could throw at us. People know them for that. Nike is an image of just do it or activism. You think about that sometimes even before their products. Wisconsin has a brand. It's a place where you go for fish fries and brats. It's just like we get together, we have a cookout. All those are actual emotional things people put their association with. But they're part of a brand image. I could close my eyes and see brats at a Brewer game. I could think about the farmer's insurance, what the next calamity is going to be. They put an image in your mind.
So when we're talking about brand, you've mentioned emotion and then an image. Just let's go a little bit deeper on that as far as the definition from your perspective.
Well, that image, those images evoke feelings. And that's part of what people want. People want you to have positive feelings towards their brand and those images. I remember how many times I've gone to baseball games with my kids. Having that cookout was the highlight for them. So having a positive image or an image that aligns with your views. Nike could be about activism, that I believe there should be social change. Nike believes that too. So we're in alignment. So those brands align with how you feel inside of you and what you believe in.
I do agree with that. I believe that the brand is what you think can definitely be different than what is perceived by somebody else, though. So when you're talking about your brand, if you believe and think a certain way, you need to make sure that you're projecting those beliefs so others understand what you stand for and what your brand means.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, I like to say that your brand, what you're projecting is ultimately what you're influencing in somebody else's mind. You don't have control on what they perceive of who you are or what your organization is, but you can influence it. And it's all about being consistent and knowing what it is that you or your organization wants to stand for.
And that makes sense because at the end of the day, many or most people use brands to sell a product, and selling is influencing people to spend their money on what you have to offer versus others. Mm-hmm. So that does make sense.
So brand can go a couple of different ways. And I know there's a lot of discussion around personal branding, but obviously within an organization or a business, you need a brand. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, brands operate at different levels. The reason you're doing this, you want to know prospective customers of your individual stuff and your business, what you stand for. And like you said, they influence people. People want to be associated with causes and brands that help meet their perceptions of how the world should be. It's an emotional side of the sale. So I have a brand for clarity is I tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. I roll up my sleeves to get a job done. You might not like what I'm saying, but I'm there to help and I sit next to you and help you do it. That's a brand. It's a direct to the point brand, but it's softened because I'll sit next to you and help you get there. Lunch with Lori is a fun brand, for example. It's about learning about people that you don't learn in any other meeting. It's about exploring. It's about answering questions, sharing secrets. That's another brand. One's more of a personal brand, one's a business brand.
They could definitely cross over though.
Well, there are actually, because part of Lunch with Lori is telling people direct things to provoke answers to questions, but at the same time, there's a fun component of it.
So why do you think a business should have a separate brand from the individual personal brand as well?
because sometimes I meet a lot of owners of businesses, the business centers around them, their personality and their statue has brought business in, but that next generation is not going to be the same as the owner. The business needs a separate identity and brand that could carry on from generation to generation.
Mm-hmm. It could also evolve too, though.
Yeah.
What are some negative aspects of brand?
From my own experience, a brand puts a stake in the ground. Once you tell what your brand is, you have made a definition. So if my brand is direct to the point, I can't say that, yeah, I listen to what everyone says. I sit back and I don't really say anything. It wouldn't work. So you have to be careful when you pick your brand, because you should be true to your brand. People figure out quickly if you're not true to your brand. And that's why it's important what you want your brand to say, because when that stake goes in the ground, you have just segmented your market and cut it from the whole universe of potential customers down to a segment of the universe.
As far as a target market, though, not necessarily what you believe in from an emotional perspective, right?
Correct. It's a combination of your product and the emotion when you do that, because people are buying both. Mm-hmm. So once you put that stake in the ground, you have now limited your potential target, which is okay, because one of the things you want to do is I'd rather have an 80% market share in my market than 1% of a whole market. It's a negative if you let it be, but it is a defining moment when you create a brand.
Okay. All right. So looking at the segmentation of a market, which you spoke about that in your definition slightly, why would you want to do that?
Because if I could find a like-minded group who wants to buy my product and services underneath my brand, it's like a community. People feel the same. They associate with that. And again, my goal is always capture a high percentage of whoever I'm marketing to. It's easy to market to a nice, concise brand than market to the whole universe.
Mm-hmm. It's easier to communicate your message to a very defined audience that is in alignment with your thinking, I would say, right? That's part of your brand, is that these are the things that you believe in and that you have passion for, and you're striving towards some sort of goal or achievement surrounded with your brand.
Yep.
Nice. Now, it's definitely not easy to do. So do you have any tips on how to create a brand?
Yeah, it starts with asking questions of yourself. What are you made out of? What do you believe in? What are your dreams? What are you trying to accomplish? But it goes more than that. You got to ask your customers, your employees, your stakeholders, your investors what they think. And after going through that Q&A session, you're going to probably come up with themes. And those themes are the foundation for your brand. So you need to go through that, because every organization, every person is different. But once you do that, you could really hone in on that message then and image that you can project to the market then.
Yeah, I agree. It's really good to ask some questions internally. I know you're a big advocate of asking as many questions as possible, which is not a bad thing. And actually, you're familiar with Simon Sinek's Start With Why, I would imagine. I mean, he talks a lot about this and how your branding, both personally and professionally, should be focused on that why, which is the more emotional part. He actually has an online course to help you try to figure out your personal brand. And I went through that course to check it out. And that's exactly what he has you do, is he asks you a series of questions, some fairly far-fetched out there, but he also has you identify some trusted individuals that you could have them answer questions about you. And the goal is to figure out if there's alignment with what you believe and how the world actually perceives you. And if there's, some conflict or some difference with what's being projected versus what you believe, that tells you either you're communicating the wrong message to the world, or the way you're acting isn't in alignment with what you believe in, or maybe you just have to make some shifts with how you are projecting yourself overall. But it was a really good exercise. And when I did it, I found that my passion is heavily focused on education. And that's why I'm here sharing what I know with the world. It's something I love to do.
Here's why you're right. I'll give my own personal story. My brand, direct to the point, tell you what you need to hear without a softening. I always call it sanding the rough edges. I needed another dimension of that to be successful. And the dimension was helping others. I could tell you what you need to the point is that it might bother you, but I'm willing to roll up my sleeves and help you. I'm willing to help other people. And so if you have a brand that's somewhat divisive, like my brand is, you have to have what I call sandpaper to rub off the rough edges. And in my case, the sandpaper is helping others everywhere I go. And it's interesting because when you do that second, I'll call it second honing, the sanding of your brand, it opens up a whole nother set of possibilities for you.
Yeah, I agree. So when you're saying you're helping others anywhere you go, how, I'm going to challenge you here, how is that part of your target market, target audience that you've defined?
Because by helping others, my goal is to build an army of salespeople who say, you have to go talk to Lori. You know, he might tell you what you don't want to hear. He might be direct to the point, but he helps you get somewhere you didn't think you could go. And so I believe in the give. By doing the give, if I'm successful with my brand and helping people, they're going to tell others. And I need to spread the word for my core clarity business, for example, because it's based on situations happening. It isn't based on targeting customers. So I need an army of people to watch for situations for me.
All right. So what other final advice do you have on branding?
This is something that goes to my personality, being an architect personality. Design brands that could be futuristic for products that don't exist today, needs that don't exist. The iPhone's a great example. You had cellular phones. The iPhone comes along and redefines the market, takes a future look. It's not a negative to add a future look to your brand and have people grow into it once they realize what it is. That's a little more risky, but the rewards are unbelievable if you go down that space. You're creating a brand for something that doesn't exist today. If it's adopted, you're the leader in that market. God bless you.
Thank you. Hopefully you didn't hear that. Oh, it's going to happen again, I think. Well, that's a first. Recording and I'm sneezing. At least I was able to mute it. Yeah, that's good. I think branding, and to some degree, it's something that is constantly evolving, just as you talked about, you know, thinking about the future. I mean, without any sort of evolution, we'd be sitting in, you know, in caves still, basically trying to start a fire. So your brand to some extent does need to continually evolve, and you should continuously evaluate what it is that you're projecting and how it's being perceived by others. I think that's really important as well. All right, this is a great conversation on the topic of branding. If you have any additional questions for Lori or myself, feel free to reach out. Otherwise, have a fantastic week, and we will touch base with you soon.
Have a great day. Take care. Bye.